put that in the comments on Facebook where we're live streaming. We'll also put that in YouTube. I'll talk about it a little later as well. Obviously, for our members in Zoom, this has been sent to you, so get this now. It's a special show-up bonus. Once the radio show is over, you can't get this. This is just for you because you showed up live, because you're watching this live right now. For you watching the recording on Facebook later or on YouTube later, you can't get this. You got to get it live. Are we live?
We are.
Hello, YouTube. Isaiah here with Cheeky Scientist. Welcome to another Cheeky Scientist radio show. We are talking today about how to get into career tracks that are different from your PhD background, and we have a special show-up bonus if you're watching this live. You can get our 5 trends that will shape the biopharmaceutical industry. It's our newest white paper, never released before. While this is on live, and I see some of you on already, you can get this. Just go to cheekyscientist.com, current-industry-trends-white-paper. We'll have to think of a simpler URL next time. We'll put that in the comment section on YouTube as well. Great to see you on. Enjoy the show. Okay, so we're going to move forward to the Show Me the Data section because we're PhDs after all, so let's look at some of the data. One quick other thing I want to mention is that if you want to get the recap of these radio shows in terms of the timestamps, the transcripts, the highlights, the video, the audio, you can always go to our blog at cheekyscientist.com/blog. You can go to our blog. This is our #1 trending radio show right now, our #1 trending blog post overall. So every Friday, you get the recap of that week's radio show. So it's on cheekyscientist.com/blog. All right, so I'm going to bring on Jeanette now, and Jeanette's going to help take us through the Show Me the Data section. We have a great data section here, all focused on LinkedIn, and with some real data that's going to impact how you navigate LinkedIn and where you place it in terms of your priority in your job search. So welcome, Jeanette. How are you?
Hey, great. I'm so glad to be here.
Good to have you on with us again, and another great bow tie choice. So please say hi to Jeanette in the chat box if you can see Jeanette. I'll close this so we can all see her. Hi, Jeanette.
Hi.
There we go. I just want to make sure they can see the bow tie. So here we go. So we have a great Show Me the Data section. This first article, for those of you listening to us by audio, I'm going to read the full title here and walk you through it in detail while those of you who can see it review it. Okay, so the title is LinkedIn Making You More Successful? ? The informational benefits derived from public social media. On the left, we have a bunch of questions that people who went through the survey and study were asked. It was, what does professional information mean to you? One question, for example, was, I receive information about innovations in my field from my network members. The relationships that I maintain are helpful in making career moves. I can get access to knowledge that is helpful in mastering job tasks from my network members. So all of these questions about what professional information or really professional networking means, and these were lined up with their actual activity on LinkedIn, which we're going to talk to Jeanette about in a second. Then on the right side of what we're looking at here, there's a table that's titled Overview over Hypotheses, RQ and Results. There's a bunch of hypotheses listed in one of the columns, and then the results and whether the results were supported or not. So Jeanette, help me in terms of clarity here. So these questions that were asked about what professional information and networking means, they were lined up with how the responder actually used LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The study looked at how the activity that people had on their different social media networks, how that related to the success that they felt they had in this professional information area. This, like, basically, it's like how, connected are you to your job? How well are you doing in your career? Those kinds of questions. And how did that correlate with how you use social media?
Got it. So basically it was trying to match up perception with reality here.
Yeah, and to see if those people who feel like they have a high level of professional information, are they using social media in a certain way that's making them more successful?
And then they also, and what they're trying to get is, what, if so, what was that certain way, right? And that's what it means by results supported or not supported.
Yep, and that RQ just means research question. Yeah.
Research question. Got it. So can you help me understand some of these hypotheses and which were supported and which were not, and what are some of the key takeaways we can gather from this?
Yeah, so I'll just go straight to what I think the meat of this is, the really exciting parts of this, the key takeaways, is that they found that there was a correlation between a high level of this professional information and the amount that people posted on social media, and on LinkedIn. So it wasn't necessarily just being active, it was what are you producing, what are you contributing? And those people who contributed more highly were more successful in this professional information area.
Yes. And that's something I know we'll talk about today with Petra, and we've talked about in the past frequently. Just recently with Donna Serdula, we talked about the activity on LinkedIn being huge. And so, not just reading people's LinkedIn profiles and reaching out, which of course is important, but if you want to be shown to more employers, you have to, I believe she called it splash around, right? You have to increase your activity, comment on a post even, right? Do some things. And that's shown here in a scientific study that it actually helps increase your network, your activity, and how you're leveraging LinkedIn professionally. What else?
Yeah, so these things are, if you do go look in the paper, you can see that they're significantly correlated. I just didn't want to show that horrible correlation table.
Yes.
But the next thing that's really key from this study is that the number of strong and weak connections mattered on LinkedIn. So only on LinkedIn did it matter if you had both strong and weak connections. And when you had lots of these strong and weak connections, you increased your professional success.
Yeah, and so we're focusing on the ones that are a little bit unexpected or maybe not as well known. Like other things were like, okay, strategic networking helps your professional career. Yes, okay. Posting stuff in terms of LinkedIn blogs, for example, if you look at the full article, was helpful. But this, I think a lot of people overlook this or they don't realize that the weak connections really matter on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of other studies backing this up that some we've talked about before. I've read a lot of them that show that the weak connections matter the most. In fact, your best chance of getting a job is actually through a weak connection versus a strong connection for a variety of reasons, and that's backed up here in the data. And it differentiates it in terms of LinkedIn activity versus, for example, Facebook or Twitter, right? So on Facebook and Twitter, right, there's only a positive effect associated with strong ties or strong connections. On LinkedIn, it was both strong and weak. What does that mean specifically, more practically? Your shared connections on LinkedIn matter. It's not just your direct connections, it's those secondary, those tertiary connections, which are all called shared connections now. Right, Jeanette, what do you have in closing on that?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think don't undervalue those secondary connections or even the people that you kind of know on LinkedIn, right? So I think sometimes we're like hesitant to connect with someone on the internet. You're like, I don't really know this person. I don't want to be their friend, right? But yes, do it, because those are how you can build out that weak connection like network, and that's how you're going to be able to grow your professional success.
And what I really think is it's because when you have a weak connection, right, they're just going to see the positive qualities when you first meet somebody. And maybe these are non-PhDs, maybe PhDs were a little bit more critical to begin with, but they see the positive qualities, but once they get to really know you, they start to see some of the weaknesses, the difficulties, etc. And let's be honest, I mean, how does in a job search, when you go for a site visit, you're putting your best foot forward, right? You're trying to show up all your strengths, and you might get one question like, what's your biggest weakness, whatever, but for real, like they're trying to evaluate whether or not you're able to show all your best stuff. Same with your resume, everything. And so when you have these weak connections, shared connections, they're going to see all of the good stuff because that's what you have on LinkedIn. You're not putting everything that you're horrible at on your LinkedIn profile. Okay? And so they're going to, yeah, and then as they get to know you, they're going to discover that you're just human, and they're going to see more of the weaknesses, etc. So that's just, it's just the nature of human psychology. And so when it comes to a job, these weak connections can be very, very powerful, sometimes more powerful than the strong connections. And again, Jeanette was spot on. I had somebody at a talk, I think it was at UNC, say, I had somebody in fashion connect with me on LinkedIn, and I know nothing about fashion, not interested in it, so I rejected them. And I'm like, okay, but what about the 500, the 1,000 connections that person has? Maybe they know somebody working at the company you want to work for, and all you would have had to do is get to know that person, say thanks for connecting, and then maybe ask for an introduction to that other person, and you're on your way to a referral. So that's the power of those weak ties. Okay, figure number, well, there's like 3 figures here, but the second section, it's a 2018 Career Builder Survey. It says the national survey was conducted online on behalf of Career Builder by the Harris Poll, and it included a representative sample of more than 1,000 hiring managers, so that's a good sample size, and human resource professionals across industries and company sizes in the private sector. So we're looking at a pie chart here, and the question that was answered in the pie chart, and it's just a yes/no question, was have you found content online that caused you not to hire a candidate? So it's fairly evenly split here. So it's no, 43% of the people said no, 57% said yes. What conclusions, if any, can we draw from this, Jeanette?
That even though it's about split, that means that 57% of hiring managers have found things online where they were thinking, yes, I'm going to hire this candidate, and then they're like, nope, never mind.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really important to be aware of what your online presence is, so that you can prevent this from happening.
Yeah, and remember, it's not going to be perfect for everybody. That's why you can't be everybody's ideal job candidate. You got to narrow it down to 2 to 3 different job titles. You have to tailor your LinkedIn profile to the job postings, and specifically the technical skills and transferable skills on the job postings, or the average job posting for those 2 to 3 positions. And you just have to speak to your audience. You can't, again, and one thing, even with location, like so many PhDs, we don't add a location to our headline, even though we know it's one of the first things that's going to be searched on LinkedIn Recruiter, because we don't want to limit ourselves. But by not adding a location, you are limiting yourself. You can put on there willing to relocate, but you have to target your profiles. You have to target your resume. If you don't, you're going to have something on there. You're much more likely to have something on there that your target audience doesn't want to see, which means they won't hire you because of that. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the obvious stuff, right, where like a picture of whatever you did in undergrad that shouldn't be online is there. We're talking about not having the right professional words, not having it targeted to the employer in terms of the job posting keywords. The second pie chart looks like a very similar breakdown, but it's reversed, right? So no was 53%, yes was 47%. The question is, if you can't find a candidate online, are you less likely to hire them? What conclusions can be drawn from this, Jeanette?
Yeah, I think that this one is really interesting because this is like, you might want to be really private with your profile, right? A lot of people have this kind of mentality, but this shows you that sometimes if you're not visible, they won't hire you because it's like, well, where are you, right? What is your professional profile? Like they can't find you, so it's almost like a lack of trust. And so the 47% of these hiring managers and recruiters that were surveyed said if they can't find you, they're not going to hire you.
Yeah, and let me be a little bit more blunt. If you are not online and they can't find you, they're thinking weirdo, guaranteed. Especially because these people live in this world. Like the hiring managers, recruiters, they're living on LinkedIn. The study shows that like over 90% of employers are using LinkedIn in some way. You have to even put LinkedIn on your resume now. And if you don't have a picture, right, you have like your privacy settings adjusted so people can't see your picture unless they connect with you, weirdo. You don't have a LinkedIn profile, weirdo. That's what they're thinking because they don't know. Like you could be a weirdo is really what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And so you have to get past this. As PhDs, I know we get very private or protective, or I don't know what we're thinking, what we're concerned about, but LinkedIn, you control the information that can be put on there. You want to get a job, you got to be willing to answer the phone. You got to be willing to be seen on LinkedIn. You got to expose yourself professionally in the right way, okay? Last chart from this study, why are employers looking candidates up online? So 58% said looking for information that supports qualifications. 50% said if they have an online presence in general. 34% said what other people are posting about the candidate. Interesting. And then 22% said a reason not to hire the candidate, which is fascinating because I think a lot of hiring managers, right, when they get a resume, they're just looking for a reason to throw that resume out, right? They're like more than almost anything else. They're like, is anything on here out of place, the formatting, like the initial walkthrough. Same thing, like think about the last email you opened from somebody you didn't know. You're just looking for a reason to archive it. You don't even want to spend time on it. You're looking for a reason to archive it unless you see something in there and everything else is okay and it seems like something might be interesting for you. So Jeanette, walk us through each of these and what conclusions, what actions we could take based on this data.
Yeah, I'm actually going to disagree with you a little bit there. I think that this data is showing that hiring managers are looking for a reason to hire you, right? So we know that most job hirings come from referrals, right? So they have your resume that someone has given to them, and they want to hire you. They want to give you this job. And so they go online to look to make sure that your qualifications match what you're saying, that your online presence supports this resume that they have and what they've been told about you.
Yes.
So I think that that's what that big 58% of employers are going online. That's why they're doing it, right? To look and make sure that you match this resume so that they can hire you.
Yeah, and I think there's an important distinction there in terms of priority, because they're obviously looking for a job candidate. They need to hire somebody to keep their job if they're a hiring manager. They need to hire somebody to get their commission if they're a recruiter. But they are looking for red flags, which can be very, very tiny. So the first one, looking for information that supports your qualifications, if you flip it around, they're looking to see if it doesn't support your qualifications.
I guess that's true.
Right. So no, but it's true. So it goes both ways, and you just don't want to give them a reason to discard you or to stop looking. You want to keep them interested in digging into the rabbit hole enough so that they pick up the phone and call you for a phone screen.
Yeah.
But you're right overall.
Yeah.
I mean, what it means here is that is an online presence important? Yes or no, based on the data. What would you say?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
it's very important.
But a lot of PhDs don't think so. We think that somehow it doesn't apply to us. Like we're above this whole online LinkedIn thing, right? We're above the process. I don't need a link. I mean, how many people have come into the association that don't have a LinkedIn profile or just have graduate student at XYZ university and then just their job titles, which are really academic titles. So it's crucial.
Yes, so it's very, very important that you have an online presence, that you have a LinkedIn profile so that those employers can go and find you and be impressed by that profile.
Yeah. It's how you communicate with them before you start communicating with them. That's really what it is. So great stuff, Jeanette. So the last one here is LinkedIn valuable, right? So we talked about its value in terms of your job search, but what is LinkedIn really worth? And for those of you that don't know, Microsoft purchased LinkedIn. And it was a very expensive but also very intelligent and strategic purchase, because a lot of the companies you'll go and work for will use Windows, no matter if you are an Apple person, a Windows, Google person, doesn't matter. But just because that Microsoft has been around so long, and the security systems, the VPNs, et cetera, for a lot of companies, and it changes country to country, are set up on Microsoft Office. So LinkedIn is becoming more and more important, not just to job seekers, but to companies. Companies are organizing their talent acquisition and their hiring all based on LinkedIn. And so if we have to put a number to it, we can, because this chart shows how much Microsoft paid for the acquisition of LinkedIn versus some of its other acquisitions. So I'll let you read the numbers off here, Jeanette, for maybe just the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, so these are Microsoft's largest acquisitions, and when they purchased LinkedIn, they paid $26.2 billion for LinkedIn.
Wow.
So it's an incredibly valuable platform, and you can see that it's way more expensive than their next largest purchase, which was for Skype, which is $8.5 billion.
Crazy.
So huge difference there. And then you can also see the third is Nokia, which was for $7.2 billion. And they're all big purchases, right? Billions of dollars. But LinkedIn by far takes the cake in being this huge investment that Microsoft saw the value in LinkedIn and chose to purchase it.
Yeah, and actually the LinkedIn one is more than all the others on this list combined. Just from the quick math in my head. So just as a comparison, right, for a lot of us, because a lot of us are STEM PhDs, you've probably heard of Beckman Coulter, which creates medical devices. There's probably a medical device or a centrifuge or something in your lab from Beckman Coulter, or you've heard of it. Beckman Coulter was acquired by Danaher, another big company. Maybe you haven't heard of it. They're one of these larger kind of faceless companies that owns a lot of other companies. Guess how much they paid? Less than $7 billion. Right? So all these medical devices and research devices that would allow you in your lab to do your research till the end of time, purchased for less than $7 billion. LinkedIn, a software app, $26 billion. Okay, Skype, right? Like essentially a messaging app that allows phone calls, 8.5. So data, right? Everything, the medical devices, all this stuff is, in a sense, if you look at the numbers, not as valuable as the ability to communicate that data, the ability to communicate with other people, the networks that revolve, that are required for pushing science forward, as an example, or engineering forward. So again, this is just important for you to start, putting on your industry hat, thinking about what's important in industry, really seeing the value of networks and connections, both practically for your job search and even, as far as where the money is going in industry. Thank you, Jeanette. Great work. Please thank Jeanette for her time in the chat box and her analysis. Good to see you. Appreciate it, Jeanette. Okay, so great Show Me the Data section. Great to have all of you on. We're going to jump into our first guest interview now. Very excited to bring on Petra Fisher. I'm going to share my screen and go through her bio, and then we're going to bring her on live, and we have some great questions lined up for Petra. We've had her on the show once before. Really, really informative. She works with a lot of international PhDs, and her clients and peers call her the LinkedIn storytelling wizard. Quite the title. I wish I had a title like that. Petra helps international professionals and entrepreneurs establish a LinkedIn presence that naturally attracts their dream client or employer. Executives with an outstanding track record hired her to add their personality to their LinkedIn profile. That's what we're going to talk about, personality. She lives with her teenage daughter and big fat red cat, her words. She loves to travel to Thailand. She's either got her nose in a book or the laptop or is out on a long walk. And the magic word for her is tea. So you can connect with Petra on her LinkedIn profile, of course. You can get her LinkedIn tips at petrafisher.com, and you can join her active LinkedIn tips in her Facebook group, facebook.com/group/LinkedIn tips, Petra Fisher. Hello, Petra. How are you? Good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you too. So glad to be on again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. If you can see Petra okay, can you say hello in the chat box? And I think I go back and forth from Petra and, am I saying it right, Petra?
Yeah, cool.
I'm good. All right, pretty good. So good, great to have you on. I mentioned that word personality, and
yes,
I know that's something you talk a lot about. So how can, in this case, of course, PhDs add some more personality? In some cases, at least, for the first time ever, an iota of personality onto their LinkedIn profile, but do so in a way where they maintain their professionalism and can get hired in industry.
Yeah, great question. You're the prime example, aren't you? You call your company cheeky scientist.
Yeah.
So that is the prime example of adding personality to
exactly.
everything you do. But when employment goes, and if you want to move into industry or any employment, it's all about skills, values, and indeed personality trait. So to go off topic a tiny little bit, because skills are extremely important on LinkedIn, not just demonstrating that you've got skills, but there's a special section called skills, and you can add 50 skills in there. And I highly recommend you totally max that out, because people are only going to see 3 of them anyway, unless they click to see more. But it's keywords, and search engines look for keywords. So definitely utilize that skills section, but also use those skills in all the descriptions in the experience section. Now, I know that everybody who's listening right now has filled in a description with every role in their profile, right?
Maybe.
I can see people blushing, even though I can't see them. I just know it. So that's your skills. And then your values, they're important too. It depends how strongly you feel about them. If you have extremely political views, you might not want to work for certain companies, and then you're going to be more open about it. If you have values, but you don't feel as strongly about it, you keep them to yourself. As for your personality traits, they are very important, because if you project something you're not, if you're a very formal person, and you like being formal, you do well with other formal people around you. But you've seen me and you think, oh, that's apparently how it goes. And you start being really chatty and casual and all that. You're going to be hired into a company where you're miserable every single day because you don't fit in a company culture. So it is extremely important. And how you do it is lots of ways. It's about your tone of voice. What kind of words do you use? It's also, are you going to be really succinct and put bullet points? Now, I know there's no bullet points on LinkedIn, but you just copy paste them from someone else's. Or are you more little paragraphs? It's also about, let me see.
Well, let me jump back real quick.
It's formal or casual. It's long stories or short stories. But it is even if you have some really strong personality trait, then you might want to show that. So if you're the person that can't get through 10 minutes without cracking a joke, then put a bit of a joke in your profile as well, because if people are going to hate that, you already know you're not going to be comfy in that culture. Or if you are really sarcastic and like to the point that you can't hide it in your daily life, then you might show a little bit of irony or sarcasm in your profile as well. Because yes, it's going to scare people off. Absolutely. If you go to my profile at the moment, I have done something that goes directly against everything I always recommend. My headline starts with cranky old fuddy-duddy, claims to know shitloads about LinkedIn, and then it has something more. But that shows personality, right? It was there as a joke in summer, but I got so many connection requests from people higher big corporate saying, that headline just got me and I had to read your profile. So think about two things. Who are you? What comes most natural to you? And what can you get away with in the company environment where you would like to work? Once you find the balance between those two, you use that in all your writing, but you also use it in media you might want to add to your profile. If you're going to add videos of yourself, think about it. Are they only when you're doing really formal presentations, because that's where you're most comfortable, or are there little really casual ones? You know, you're making a cup of tea, you had this brainwave and you had to record it straight away. It all shows your personality. So many different ways to add
and
it.
let me just jump in real quick.
The main thing is,
hold on one sec. Let me just jump in real quick. So I
don't hear you at all, Isaiah. I can only see your lips move.
Maybe there we go. Does that work? Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
All right. So no, This is great stuff. Sorry, I wanted to jump in and recap because we covered so much ground.
Sure.
What Petra's really talking about here is two things that we've talked about before: aligning your purpose and your audience. And it is important, and it's a little bit of a balance. There's a little bit of an art to it. You are searching for a job. So for example, you know, if you want to go work at a company where people dress up, then you should dress up. But at the same time, in general, you should also dress up like you're going to an interview, right? So you're looking for a job. It just depends on what your goal is. Obviously, Petra's goal is to attract, you know, companies and entrepreneurs in a different kind of relationship. You want to work for one of these companies full-time, in-house, you know, usually. So that's how you have to break things down. And you know, I completely agree with her. Like, think about the kind of culture you want to work in. If you want to work in a very professional, conservative culture, such as you might find at a management consulting company, one of the larger firms like a McKinsey & Co., whatever, yeah, you better dress extremely formally. You better have a very professional profile, etc. But if you're looking for more of a very relaxed startup, you know, especially maybe in Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area, etc., maybe you want to be a little bit more relaxed. Maybe, you know, even your dress might be just a little bit toned down, not much, but a little bit toned down from what you'd wear on an interview. And your conversation style, right? I mean, we don't want to recommend, you know, using certain types of language, whatever, but the key here is you're considering your audience and you're testing to see what works. So I think all of those things are important. And just to go back to the very beginning of what Petra said, your skills show your personality. And right, there's that qualitative side, but there's also the quantitative side of they are keywords that are on your profile, and that will help you show up in search results. So personality comes down to language, obviously. So your language choice on LinkedIn is crucial. And the language that you use will appeal to different companies, different company cultures, and different people, correct?
Yes.
So let me move forward so we have time for this. Now, we have a lot of PhDs who have the academic culture, the academic language. How can they be more future-facing on LinkedIn, right? So they want to project that they are now ready for industry. They have business acumen. They can speak the language of industry. So what kind of language tips would you have for people, you know, maybe that you've worked with in the past, for people who are getting their first job?
Yeah, great question. And this is my all-time favorite topic, because these days, everywhere I go, I say, make sure your LinkedIn is fully future focused. I even have it on my t-shirt these days. See, there we go. Make sure your LinkedIn is fully future focused, because people tend to write about the past on LinkedIn. I did this, and that, and then I did that, and that. And that is boring. We can guess that from your job title. You know, what we want to look for is transferable skills, especially if you want to move out of academia into industry, if you're getting too specific, too detailed, it will only make sense to the people you used to work with back then, not the ones where you're going. So important things are...
Yeah, so just let me jump in one more time, because for academics and for PhDs, right, again, even in your skills, like Petra brought up, like you're allowing Western blotting, cell culture to be brought up, and you're using the academic language of like these advanced methodologies that you've used that, 5 people on the planet will understand. That is not the kind of language you want to use if you want to attract employers, especially hiring managers, recruiters who don't have a PhD.
Yeah. So you want to think of more generic skills, things like collaboration, or big picture thinking, or eye for detail, your communication skills. If you've done your research in a team, then you have collaboration skills, but maybe also leadership skills, all these kind of things. But most importantly, the way you're going to write it down is always, I say, show me, don't tell me. Don't say, I have great communication skills, and make a typo in that sentence while you read it. It's like, doesn't tell me anything.
Yes.
I want you to say, by doing X, I achieved Y. So you're proving your skills. You're showing how it was used. And again, do it in a way that I can understand it. If I can understand it, I don't have a background of any of you, because I don't come from academia. I don't come from business. So if I can understand it, anyone can understand it. And then, in interviews and stuff, I think interpersonal skills, they tend to be more valuable than technical skills, because I was at this conference 2 weeks ago where I was speaking to women in tech. And at one stage, I was in a breakout session with some young ladies. They were all working in tech. And this session that I was on the panel was about storytelling. And they said to me, if I make it to an interview, they already know I can do the job, because tech is all about hard skills. So you look at my qualifications, I can do it. So it's adding personality, it's that bit of storytelling, it's those kind of things that make the difference between, are they going to hire you or you?
And does that sound familiar, right? So again, as we keep saying, employers know that you have the technical skills that you need. You got the PhD. I mean, you have a degree that literally says you have the technical skills, or you can learn them. It's a transferable skills. So I want to move forward to the idea of a personality profile, right? So it's called a talking LinkedIn profile. And I know this is something that you have yourself. So I was actually going to show on the screen here what this is. I think we have a video of it, don't we? Maybe? That's what this is, right? So we have your talking LinkedIn profile. I'm not sure if it'll play. Let's see if it'll play.
Hello everyone, it's Petra Fisher from petrafisher.com.
Can you hear this?
Yes.
And as usual, I'm bringing you great tips and fun facts, all related to LinkedIn. I don't know if you've seen this, but I'm very excited about the Talking LinkedIn profile, where we can really engage with our audience. For example, when you visit my talking profile, you'll see that right above my head, there's my company logo. And to the side, there's a statement telling you all about what I do. Just below, there's my name, and then there's my headline. This headline was actually a bit of a joke over summer, but I'm getting so many positive comments on it that I'll keep it for a bit longer. If you wanted to find out more about me, you just go down and read the summary and keep scrolling so you can read all about my experience. Recommend. If you feel my LinkedIn tips are any good, feel free to endorse me.
And so I think
apart from LinkedIn, you can find me on Facebook. Yes.
It's something very, very unique that can be done now. So how did you do that?
Yeah, well, actually, that was a joke.
Oh.
If you look at your screen, you can see Loom on the top.
Yes.
So I'll tell you what the joke was and how you can still use it.
Great.
Often when we record instruction videos, we can use tools such as Loom to record our screen and record ourselves at the same time. Just like now in Zoom, we can see your screen and we can see you.
Yes.
So the first time I tried Loom, I realized that the little me was in a circle. So just, feeling cheeky, I moved myself on top of my profile picture. So this is actually just a screen recording of my LinkedIn profile, and then the little presenter that in this radio show is you is moved on top of it. So it's fake ass. But it is a unique way to get a message across, and especially because we can add video to our profile. So
Yes.
here, where I was doing these things like, here's my logo, there's my tagline, there's that, etc. You know, it's a great introduction to the key points of your profile you might want to show to people. But no, we do not really have talking profiles, but it's a great little way to introduce yourself or talk about an area of your profile you really want people to pay attention to, or, you know, holiday season coming up, you can make one with you wearing a Santa hat, but it is just a video, so it's not, as people go to your profile, they won't see it, though. You have to upload the video somewhere.
No, and it's a great segue, because we want to know, where can you add videos? We talk a lot about adding medias, images, pictures. Obviously, for those of you who are in our program, you want to add our association badge, because it helps employers, recruiters find you and shows that you've been trained. That's just one of the many uses of media. But specifically, you know, for media, for videos, maybe you can walk us through where they can be added, where they're not fake.
Yeah, so they can be added in lots of places. Yep, they can be added with the summary. And the good thing is they're now visible. There was a while there when if you added media to your summary, people had to click see more to see it, but at least now it's in the preview again. And as you can see, they're displaying 6 before you have to scroll. So that's with the summary. That's the very, very first impression. Yes. Then in the experience section, you can add media, so video or images or PDFs. That's all my clients, that map. That shows where, nice. Then that's an old video. So in experience, with every job role, you can add media. Now, when you post an update to LinkedIn, obviously you can also share a video when you share an update. Yes. If you own the video, if you have it, then it's better to upload it than to link to YouTube or Vimeo, because, you know, LinkedIn, Facebook, they're all the same. They want to keep the people on that platform. They don't want you to move away. So, yes, when you click that, then you can upload. Takes a little bit longer, but it gives you way more views than when you link to an external channel. Yes. If you write an article, something you mentioned before, a long post, they don't gain as much traction anymore, though. They're a bit of a pain in the bum at the moment, but still you can add video to it. And yes. Company pages, you can, if you have a company page, like Cheeky Scientist, most PhDs wouldn't have their own, but even if you're at work, you can add video to company pages as well. And I think video is really, really important, because these days, I mean, it's the second search engine after Google, and people, they're so used to it. There's always this big debate about subtitles. People say that you should always add captions to your videos, because when people are watching on public transport or at work or whatnot, they won't turn on the sound. I think that's okay for instructional videos, but if you're using videos so that people can get to know you, so I won't use captions, because people know my knowledge. It's out there. It's on my profile, and my articles, and my blog. My videos, I'd show my personality. So it shows my funny accent. It shows that I always look up or squint when I talk, all these kind of things. One of the really good things, I found that in a sad way from one of my clients, is, oops, my cat is knocking you over. So yeah, sorry about that. Okay. If you have a last name that people in your country are not accustomed to, and combine that with pitch black hair, you might experience some prejudice, even though you have a PhD, because somehow that face and last name speak stronger than your degree. So if you record a little video, even if it's just 30 minutes, introducing yourself, saying, I'm so-and-so doing this, etc., it proves that you speak fluent English, that you're using academic words, etc. So you can use it for that. There's so many ways to use it, and how you add it on is different in every place. Like I said, you just showed us how to do it in an update, but if you write a long post, it's different. If you add it to your profile. So I thought I should actually write about this. So if you're not on my newsletter yet, I think you should go to my website and do so, because then I'll give a step-by-step instruction this weekend about all the different ways to add videos. So
Yeah.
I've got articles out there why you should do it and what kind of videos, but I suddenly realized it might be good to have a step-by-step how to upload it.
Yeah, and I want to say in closing here, and I want to say a special thank you for you to be on, Petra. Thank you for your insights. But I also want to say I think that last piece of advice for international PhDs is great, right? Get on, by video, show, don't tell, how that you can speak whatever language you need to speak for that position, and that
Yes.
you are able to articulate yourself well. Very likely you have skills that they don't realize or they might be misjudging you on. Video is a great way to lay that to rest and to promote yourself. So great advice, Petra. Thank you very much for being on. Great to see you as always. Really appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having us.
Thank you. Please thank Petra in the chat box. Fantastic. Really, really appreciate it. And for those of you who want to get on Petra's mailing list, you can go to the link there, petrafisher.com, petrafisher.com. As Petra mentioned, you can connect with her on LinkedIn, of course, on linkedin.com/in/Petra Fisher. She did mention there are company pages too. That's why I was showing our Cheeky Scientist company page, which I put on in the chat box too. So thank you, Petra, very much. Really appreciate your advice and your expertise.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And we are going to continue forward with our next guest. We're going to jump right in and bring on Evgenia, who is going to talk to us about her career transition. So Evgenia's profile, let me find it here. I'm going to go to her bio. We'll bring her on in just 1 minute. I'm going to close a couple of tabs. So this is Evgenia, and Evgenia did her PhD in biochemistry with a focus on human genetics at the University of Buenos Aires. From there, she gained valuable experience as an editor, working for quite a few companies: Cactus Communications, Mogo Edit, Clear Science, Self-Hacked. She was also an associate editor at the Journal of the International Academy of Science, Humanities and Arts, the Joshua Journal, and she also joined Self-Hacked as their full-time chief scientific editor. She is currently working as a medical writer and editor, co-editor, as well as a co-editor of EMWA's Medical Writing Journal. I forget what that's, European, what is that, Evgenia? European something, right?
European Medical Writers Association.
You think of, yeah, MEMW, Medical Writing, hello. European Medical Writing Association's Medical Writing Journal, and developing her science communication consulting business. Evgenia, how are you?
Hi, Isaiah. I'm great, and I'm super honored to be here at the very show.
It's good to see you. Yeah, where are you located right now?
Now I'm in Naples, in the south of Italy, for this month.
Naples, that's right. Yeah, so the connection might be a little bit spotty, but I think we're going to be okay here. It's good to see you. I wish I was in Naples. My first question is very simple. Why medical writing? So we have a lot of new associates in the program. You know, you yourself are an associate. A lot of PhDs who are considering maybe a different career than staying at the bench. So why did you choose medical writing?
Well, that was actually one of the main reasons. Like after my PhD, I was sure that I was passionate about science. I was passionate about discussing science, communicating science, but I didn't want to stay in the bench and I didn't want to stay in academia. So I left, and kind of I felt very, I felt that communicating and helping others communicate their science was my thing. Like I was totally passionate about it. I was editing other people's manuscripts during my PhD, and I loved, writing my thesis and making presentations, for congresses, writing my papers. That was something that I really enjoyed. So I don't know, when I thought about the possibilities in the industry.
Let me jump in real quick. Yeah, so I want to focus on that first. How did you make that decision? Was it just you liked to write? So you're like, oh, this is a skill I enjoy, and then you hated bench work? Or was it more complicated than that? What made you, because a lot of people have a problem with that choice. They have a problem coming to that decision.
No, actually, I never hated the bench. It was just, I felt that that was, when I was doing the writing and like the communications part of the science, especially like bringing science closer to the people and doing something more applied than just staying in the lab doing like what for me was, you know, like very small research that was not making an impact in the world. That was my way of contribution. Like I always wanted to make a difference in the world, and that was the way. Like for me, communication is key in every aspect of my life. And
so
yeah,
I like that.
That was what made sense.
So that's a great question to ask. You know, how could I have the biggest impact on the world? And it's usually where your skills line up, right? So what skills do I have what skills do I have? What skills do I enjoy? What skills are going to have an impact on the world? If you match up those three things, that'll help you make a decision on where you want to go in your career. So for you, that was writing, medical writing. Now, what did that transition process look like? Well, you know, we all have a story, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, well, actually, my transition, like my first transition, and this was before I joined CQ Scientist, was quite a failed transition. I left academia, I left my PhD, and took the first job opportunity that I could, and I stayed in that job miserably for 6 months. That was like how long it took me to realize that I was really miserable. And I was not valued as a PhD, you know, like everything that I could bring to the table was not valued at all. And of course, underpaid, that
goes without saying.
Almost obvious.
I'm still here.
Yeah, and yeah, after that, basically, like I had my, you know, like my career crisis where I didn't know exactly what to do, and that's where kind of like the idea of working in scientific communications came up. And I knew about the association. Actually, I knew about the association because I met someone who was already in the association, Jackie Johnson, and she was my mentor, and she was also in the same industry that I wanted to get into. And she gave me the best advice, and one of those advices was to join the association and to join like specifically, of course, like other medical writers associations. And from that moment in my life, everything started falling into place. I realized that was what I wanted to do, and then I actually gained the skills to know like how to do it and how to reach my goal.
So what were those skills that you had, like the skills you had to learn, right? I'm sure you had some transferable skills, et cetera, but what were some of the biggest aha moments during your transition into this specific career track?
Well, I would say that, like, for sure, the biggest one was learning to network and to add value. And actually, like, I wasn't doing it at all before. But once I started, like, now I just love networking, you know, like I love talking to people. I love when people reach out to me with, you know, like those questions like, oh, I'm so inspired by you and your job. Can you tell me more? Yeah, it's just like, it feels amazing in collaborations with people. Yeah, I would say like that was the main thing. And of course, like the more technical things, like, you know, like having a good resume, you know, like a good LinkedIn profile that you can actually show to people and you will not embarrass yourself. Yeah.
So
sure.
really,
But adding value was the key point for me.
So it just came down to relationships, adding value, and networking, even to thrive in that role. And I think you'll see that no matter what career track you want to get into, even if you want to work at the bench in industry, you're going to have to get good at networking and communication, and you know, you're increasing your professional presence. One of the last questions I want to ask you too is about, you know, your time as a manager. So I know you worked as editor-in-chief or lead editor at one of the organizations. So how did you find that role? Was it hard to learn how to manage people? What did you not know, you know, in retrospect when you first started? And then what did you learn in terms of effective management? Because a lot of PhDs, we have transitioned into roles where all of a sudden you have 3 people reporting to you, right? Especially if you get into a management position. So looking back again, what did you not know when you became a manager? And then what did you learn that made you a better manager?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, when I joined, I found this position through a referral from one of our chickies. And I first started as just like a freelance editor. I did a few jobs, and then all of a sudden I had this full-time job offer. And it actually wasn't chief science editor at the beginning. It was, like just almost like technical editor, proofreader, and I was working full-time, and like very quickly things transitioned from being just an editor, just part of the team of a startup company, to being in this situation where I was like managing a team of like, I think like at some point we had like 8 editors and like at least 30 or 40 medical writers working for us.
Wow.
And they were all remote. So it was at some point like it was a big challenge, but yeah, I think like my transition from that position where I was like almost like in the background, like just doing my thing, and then starting to relate to people and to teach, like I was basically, I think like I just saw someone asking like, how do you add value? And basically like also like what I started doing is like everything that I learned to do as an editor myself, I started teaching it. And I started like seeing like everything that I could see that was an opportunity for improvement for the company. I was like, hey, what if we do this? What if we do that? I can do this. This comes natural to me, like I can talk to this person, I can reach out. And that was what got me into the position, like into this like chief science editor position. And then I think like the management, at least in my case, I didn't get like any training. It was like more learning by doing.
Yeah.
But I was constantly getting, because of like, I was working for a startup, I was constantly getting feedback from people who were like the CEO of the company, my peers, like other project managers, and also even like from people who I was training. So
yeah, so and I think what you said,
something that I had to learn.
And I think those key management skills: learning to ask the right questions, learning to ask for help, to ask how can we do this better, what process would make this better, what systems. As PhDs, a lot more about process and systems than you might think, because you're using protocols, right? You probably use protocols all the time, whether in the lab, right, or at the computer. Methodologies you are very familiar with, and those are the systems that allow businesses to scale, which make you a good manager. And then just listening to feedback, right? Again, asking questions, listening. These are all skills that you have, and they go along with those transferable skills that Petra was talking about, that you want to put on your LinkedIn profile, even if they seem super basic. You might think like good listening skills is too basic. No, that is what an employer really wants to see. It really can be helpful. Asking good questions. You might think it's too basic because it's not technical. It's not. It's crucial. So I think that's fantastic. So Evgenia, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. We're a little over the top of the hour, so I know we're going to have you back on soon. Please thank Evgenia for her time in the chat box too. If you have any questions about medical writing, you could reach out to Evgenia. We're going to be seeing a lot more of her. So thank you for your time. Have fun in Naples.
Thanks a lot, Isaiah, for having me. See you soon.
All right.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So thank you all for joining. If you're watching our live stream, we really appreciate it. If you're in the U.S., I know it's the day before Thanksgiving, but hey, that's the best day to learn, right? While everybody else is about to take a holiday. So it's great to see all of you on here. If you have any questions about what we covered today, you can ask us those questions in comments on our public Facebook page. You can also reach out to us anytime, and you can get on our newsletter at phdsgethired.com at any time too, phdsgethired.com. And I'm going to show you one last time here. For those of you watching publicly, this is the show up bonus, your very last chance to get the show up bonus here. We have not released this before. I'm going to send it to you as soon as we're done with the overall radio show. We're going on to our members only portion of the radio show. Only Cheeky Scientist Associates get access to this portion. We do live LinkedIn reviews, resume reviews. We have live call-ins from other PhDs who have questions. So if you want to learn more about the association, go to phdsgethired.com. And if you want to get this show up bonus, you have about 30 seconds to go to this page right here cheekyscientist.com/current industry trends white paper with a dash in between each one of those words. You'll get our 5 trends that will shape the biopharmaceutical industry. Thank you again for joining us. You can join us on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our radio show, where we will start every radio show with insider job tips and our Show Me the Data section, talking about current trends in terms of job searching, getting your first or next industry job, and thriving in industry as a PhD. So thank you and goodbye. We're going to say goodbye to you too on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. This takes us to the end of our public YouTube show, so thank you. Make sure you get that show up bonus quickly, next 5 seconds. Otherwise, you can go to phdsgethired.com and get on our newsletter there. See you, YouTube. Okay, so we are